You're watching a special presentation of CBS 4 News Town Hall. Your voice, your future. Immigration.
We'd like to welcome back our CBS 4 viewers for our live town hall on immigration at the Bogus Ford Event Center. And of course, welcome back our listeners from our radio partner, News Talk 710 KURV. Let's check in with this gentleman. Sir, please tell us who you are, where do you live, and what is your question?
My name is Tom, and I am from McAllen. And first of all, I want to applaud Channel 4 for taking on this issue and, bringing it in, not like the other networks, but a little more unbiased. My comments, I fully...
Well, we don't know each other, right? So I didn't ask you to say that, did I?
I don't have to claim the $100? No, just kidding. Hey, I fully support immigration reform. And I guess everybody here must also support it if they think it's broken. My comments tonight are going to be toward the area of President Obama's DACA program, which impacts me personally. I think that our great senators from Texas are doing a great travesty by not addressing the issue of immigration. I don't know if either or any of you will agree with me. I think it's a travesty that they do not put a full Supreme Court in place to rule on DAPA, and all of this other issues that are coming forth. I think that our senators need to do their job, and I think we need to let them know that they have to do a job. The process that we go through in DACA, send in all this information on children that were brought here very young. A lot of these children do not know any of the politics of their country. They do not know their culture. They are acculturated. They are part of us. But they are second-class citizens. They are not entitled to health care. They are not entitled to a lot of things. They're not here for the entitlement. They were brought here, we've educated them, and then we say, well, we need to get rid of them.
So your question is?
What do you guys think is the answer? Supreme Court is going to rule very soon on DACA and DAPA, on 8 Supreme Court justices.
And let me get a response from our panelists. Mr. Garza, what do you think? This issue's been out there for a few years now.
I agree with your frustration, as do many Americans, that there has been inaction on immigration reform. Just like everybody else, we are waiting on what the Supreme Court will eventually decide on DACA. What I can say is that, at the Leave It initiative, we support comprehensive immigration reform that doesn't separate families, especially children who have been in the country for long periods of time. We believe that they should be able to contribute to the American economy, that they should have the right to work here, that they should have some form of legal status so they're not living in the shadows. Same thing with DAPA, with parents and whatnot and immigrant families, that they should be able to contribute. And I'll say again that when you look at comprehensive immigration reform, that while border security is important, it shouldn't necessarily, and I share your frustration that, and many Americans share your frustration that the entire United States Senate, the entire United States Congress has failed to enact on both sides of the aisle that they'd be allowed to some form of legal status where they can work here. We should not be in the business of separating families. There has to be a compassionate approach, but a reasonable and a free market approach that addresses labor market forces and does not separate families, especially children who are here in the United States at no fault of their own.
Ms. Meneda, anything to add on that?
Absolutely. I have seen firsthand in the Rio Grande Valley how DACA, Deferred Action Program for Childhood Arrivals, has positively impacted the lives of young immigrants. And I also know from my own family how programs like DAPA, programs that will help parents and family members of children who are U.S. citizens or permanent residents, how that will impact our families. because immigration is not just with undocumented families, there's also mixed status families as well that impacts us as well. And I know how DACA positively impacts the life of people. And now DACA and DAPA, those two programs, we have DACA now. What we're waiting for the Supreme Court is the expansion of DACA and the implementation of DAPA. I have seen how those programs help people. And while they have limitations, they are a step in the right direction to help people become part of the fabric of our society. Our economy is like a quilt, and we all put into it. We all have the responsibility, and we should have the right to put into our economy and put into our culture. And although DACA and DAPA, they are not a permanent solution, they do not offer a pathway to citizenship, but our Supreme Court, I hope, will see how it will impact the millions of families, the immigrant families that are living in a nation, and will allow them to live out of the shadows, and families that are anxious and that are waiting to become self-sustainable and to be able to contribute to this country.
Mr. Brand, anything to add on this?
No, sir.
We've said it all right here. We're back to the live audience. Sir, please tell us who you are, where you live, and what is your question?
My name is Michael Huerta. I'm a citizen from Harlingen. My question is, many of the immigrants coming into the country are finding the process to be very difficult financially, especially when you consider these are stipulations that cannot be met by most citizens from the Valley and from the rest of the nation. It holds a poverty level that isn't regional, but rather national. I feel this is discriminatory knowing that most immigrants cannot meet these conditions. Do you feel that this has agitated the flow of illegals coming into the country?
So I want to make sure we understand the question. So you're talking about the economic situation?
Yes, the I-864 form requires that immigrants that are coming into the country make a certain amount of money or have a certain amount of assets, and the sponsors that endorse them either make a certain amount or also hold a certain amount of assets. Now, many of the illegals may feel as if they're being punished by the system due to the fact that they're trying to do everything correctly, but the system seems to only be holding them back. Now, most of the illegals will not try to go through this route because it is often too arduous for them. So they just go through the process undocumented. Would you feel that this has only created a worse situation for those that want to go through the process the right way?
Mr. Brand, I'll start with you. Any thoughts? It's kind of like the issue of people won't hire you unless you have experience, but how do you get experience if you don't get hired? So if you don't have the assets to come in and you don't have the means to get there, does it create a cycle that makes it difficult for people to come in legally? And are they going in illegally because they can't get that threshold?
Because they don't come with money. Is that what I think that's what I
think
hear.
that's the question, and that's something we addressed earlier. We talked about the difference between different types of visas, H-1B visas, and so forth. There are visa programs out there that open the doors for anyone who comes in and invests $500,000. We open the doors wide up. Is that correct? Is that incorrect?
You know, I think for an illegal or an immigrant, whatever you want to call them, when they come and they have no money, they have a dream, they're going to escape their difficulties wherever they're coming from. But when they get here and they have no money, what is their options? One, be put with relatives or family that can support them until something's worked out. Two, we know that a small percentage, but there's a percentage that'll turn to crime. Or three, some kind of government assistance, if any way they can establish that. But the problem is, what you want them to follow the order of the options that are given and not go outside of those bounds and do something that all of us know is wrong. Be it crime, be it whatever. So I think that the difficulty is, you know, I've read several papers where people have said over the years that, you know, we will never solve the poverty of the world. Never. We're 316 million out of 7.135 billion people. And having worked in Central America for 20 years, it was very different how we could help people where they were instead of helping them here. To help them in their own countries. The amount of energy and time and money it took was so much more economical and efficient, and so much more they be able to done for them where they were than they are here. And so, you know, I think there's a reason we have those laws. I think there's a reason you come in because you come in as a responsible citizen, you come in as a responsible immigrant, you come in as a responsible permanent resident, whatever it may be, that you come in responsible and not but put a burden on all the systems that we have in place now. I don't know if that answers it or not, but
Actually, I want to address with Mr. Oliveras, but then I want to check with Tiffany to see what our viewers at home think about all this. I have a college-age daughter that I sent to a European country for 6 months to study abroad. I had to pay 6 months' worth of living expenses into a Dutch bank before she'd be given a visa because they wanted to ensure she wouldn't be a burden. And I thought that was interesting because she's coming from the U.S., a family, college. So we see some differences in other countries. Is it unreasonable to expect people to have at least the means to support themselves in some fashion for a while? Or is that an unreasonable expectation?
I think it depends on the type of visa, and I think that's what the question was getting at. Some types of visa require that the applicant demonstrate that he or she has the capacity to support themselves, that they're not going to become a burden to society or to anybody else. So, but not all visas have that. All visas, humanitarian visas and certain special visas don't have that requirement because it's a visa with a different purpose. I think that requirement can be reasonable in certain circumstances, but I think it's also important to address the misconception that undocumented immigrants receive government benefits. They are not eligible for food stamps. They're not eligible for health care. So I think it's important to keep that in mind when we have this discussion that undocumented immigrants are not creating that type of burden. People who qualify for those type of welfare benefits that we as a society have decided to put in place are people who are here legally, either legal permanent residents, citizens, or people who have some sort of immigration status.
I'd like to take this moment now to check in with our viewers at home and to see what they think of all this. Tiffany, what's the latest?
That's right, Mark. We've got a lot of feedback on Facebook, on Twitter. Right now, the latest question is Steve asks, how do they tax illegal immigrants if they don't have to file their taxes and they don't have a social security number?
Ms. Mederahi, what do you think?
I'm not sure who said undocumented immigrants don't pay taxes, but I have family that is undocumented. I know many people that are undocumented, and they pay a lot of taxes. They pay taxes every time they buy something, and undocumented immigrants with U.S. citizen children can file their taxes. Even undocumented immigrants, if they file for an I-10, can file their taxes. Now, I work with a local organization named La Unión del Pueblo Entero, and our demographic is largely undocumented. And I can tell you, the busiest season for us is tax season. Our memberships go up, our offices are out of control because immigrants are eager to file their taxes. They're eager to be a part of this fabric of our society. So I think it's really a fallacy that undocumented immigrants do not pay their share of taxes. I've never seen that.
Mr. Garza, thoughts?
You know, I go back to the question that was asked before about immigrants coming to the United States and the example you gave of your daughter studying abroad. And I don't think it's unreasonable, but I will say that we are a nation of immigrants. Since the very founding of the United States of America, people have been coming from across the world to pursue the American dream. And I think what we've seen in our country is a diminishment of that opportunity with the size and scope of government spending and growth. And I think that while immigrants continue to come, there has to be a sustainable solution for them to remain here, to be legal. And I would say that once they have some kind of legal status, we will see them contributing in large part, in greater part, to the U.S. economy.
We're back to the live audience. Please tell us who you are, where do you live, and what is your question?
My name is Ariel. I live in Edinburgh. My question is, being that there is a problem of the underreporting of sex crimes in the Valley, how would you go about changing that conversation when it comes down to immigrants who are these victims of violent sex acts? Because they go into police departments with a disproportionate amount of fear of being deported for reporting their crime, but the crime never gets addressed. So how would you go about changing that conversation to make it safer for all victims to talk about these issues?
Ms. Mederahi, I think you have an opinion on this issue.
I hope everyone has an opinion on this issue. But number one, thank you for bringing this up. I don't think sexual violence is something that's brought up enough for women, for men, and especially for immigrants. So thank you for bringing it up. I think that part of this, what we have to, or to answer this question, is also the trust of local communities to be able to report crimes to our local police and police officers. Sometimes, like you said, immigrants are scared that if they report something, they're going to be deported. If they report something, they're going to be detained. And we see that all the time in the colonias, in our immigrant communities, which is why we have to make sure that our men and women on the ground that are enforcing the law, that they have very clear distinctions and their authorities are very clearly defined.
And I'm going to interrupt you just for a moment because I'm going to have to say goodbye to our live viewers on CBS 4. We're going to have to return to our regular programming. Of course, join us at valleycentral.com, and our listeners are at our radio partner, News Talk 710 KURV. We're still online with you guys, so if you're watching us on CBS 4, join us at valleycentral.com. Please continue your answer.
Sure.
Thanks for watching this special presentation of CBS 4 News Town Hall, Your Voice, Your Future. Integration.